Alright, it's me again. For this particular video, I'd like to try a kind of a slightly new or different approach. I'm offering a slightly different perspective to help us all enhance our understanding of all the relevant things that should be understood. It would be good to understand, so that we can understand things with insight and with proper context, so that we're not mistaken as to what's going on, what's really going on in the life and in this situation, and then to not lose sight of what's important, because that's truly the key thing. Okay, so let's make up a hypothetical example. Okay, now all the things in this world, when it comes down to interpersonal issues between human beings, between people, the most important thing to understand is that at the end of the day, the honoring and the respecting of the dignity of every single person in a given equation or landscape, so to speak, this is the key thing. This is the essence of morality. Being a good person, what does this mean when you boil it down? It means treating everyone with dignity. And the solution that enforces morality is sort of an extension of the old Hammurabi law or code, which is also a law present in the Bible, Mosaic law. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. And if you are the first one, the originator of an offense against some other person, and you're the first cause of the first problem, then the other person coming back to you and knocking you, in a sense, in a figurative sense, that is not an offense. That's good, correct adjustment to help the lizard brain of the wrongdoer learn, ouch, that hurts when I do wrong to someone else. It starts a domino chain that, well, if we run life correctly, we have to shape the domino chain so that it always results in pain that links back to the one who started the problem. Then you have a perfect society. Anytime you don't do it that way, anytime a wrongdoer gets to get away with action in the eyes of God, it's wrong, but he got away with it, that is not good. That means the human beings that ran the system down here failed to orient the proper system. That's what the Bible is all about. Just like the Confucius codes and the Confucian philosophy is all about the same kinds of things. So let's get into a practical example. Now, there's two types of things in life that happen. First of all, there's offense, meaning that someone could do wrong against somebody else. Well, there's all sorts of things you can do wrong. In the Bible and the moral code and the Confucius codes and every other code of philosophy that deals with what right and wrong is, almost always connected to the preservation of dignity, the dignity of human beings, how we treat them. It gives dry, strict commands and form. Don't mistreat them this way. Don't mistreat people that way. Don't do this wrong. Don't do that wrong. Why is it wrong? Because it impacts the dignity of a human being somewhere in the equation in a negative way. That's what makes it wrong. You get that? Yeah. Well, step two is, now you have different kinds of people who will do different kinds of wrongs. Okay? People's natures are different. One guy is a thief. Another guy is a cheater. Another guy is a sociopath in a different way. Another guy is not a sociopath, but does some other wrongdoings. He lies a lot. Okay, there's 50 or 100 different ways that tree can branch out into 100 different branches, 100 different varieties of how people can act There's one way to do things right, and I say sometimes there's one or maybe two or two and a half ways at most how to do things right. But there's 100, 500, 1,000, 10,000 distinct ways that you can miss the mark. The farther away from the mark you are, the more space out there in that way farther outer rim there is on which to fly through at all those different spots. There's a million ways to get things wrong. Because not all wrongdoers and not all offenses are the same, what we can say is that the constellation of offenses that people generate tend to form a certain shape. Okay? If you look up at the sky, now the sky is not made of constellations, it's made of stars in the literal sense. It's just stars. Okay, certain ones we ignore, certain ones we pick out, and all those stars are positioned in relation to one another. Now when the night sky is scrolling across and you look at one particular star, oh there's Sirius, oh there's another star, oh there's a North Star, oh there's there's thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of stars. But guess what? If you look at a certain group of stars and the grouping of stars looks a certain way and they're positioned relative to each other in a very specific way that's unique to that constellation, that's the only group of stars that looks like that and forms that meta shape at the bigger level. So when you're looking at those stars and you see that they form a certain constellation, you know immediately two things. You know what that group of stars is not, and you know what that group of stars is, and its position in the sky, and what the name and label of that constellation is, and you're astrologically inclined, what the nature and energetic properties of that constellation are, and those are distinct to it. Okay, Sagittarius doesn't have the same properties as Gemini does, and Gemini doesn't have the same properties as Pisces does. But if you take a telescope and you look only at one star at a time, and you look at one star and then you look at another star and then you look at another star and then another star, and you only see one at a time, one after the other, you can't gather any new information of significance. So what? They all look the same. That's a round shiny dot. Okay, what's next? That's also a round shiny dot. So what? And then in isolation you look at a random other one somewhere nearby. Maybe it's nearby, maybe it's not. You don't even know. Oh, that's another round shiny bright dot. Yeah, so what? That doesn't give you any useful information. Looking at the individual shiny dots isolated from one another, broken apart contextually, so there's no context connecting them, that doesn't tell you anything important. It's when you look at the whole group of stars together, how they interconnect, they form a shape, then you go, ah, now I know what region of the sky we've been looking at the whole time. You might not have known that if I blindfolded you, spun you around in a circle, and then isolated one dot and made you look at it through a telescope. You would know nothing. And if I did that 100 million times, you'd still know nothing. You look at the group of stars, this constellation is only the constellation of Scorpio. That's it. Oh yes, now we know when the planets are here, we know what the aspect is, and we know what all of this tells you information. But what is the information good for? It's good to help explain the underlying cause and the underlying dynamics behind what you're seeing at the manifest level, which is what? The shape of the stars and their positions, which is just a happenstance. It happens that it manifests as those stars in those shapes. But when you see the overall picture and the shape of the interconnectivity of it all, that gives you the deeper meaning. It's that deeper underlying useful meaning that helps you solve the problems in astrology. and astronomy and whatever, and in anything in life. Okay? We turn, using this analogy, with this analogy as the contextual framework with which we will understand the thing, we now turn to the analysis of offense. In life, when you see someone doing something wrong, it's never only that they simply did a wrong thing, and that wrong thing exists in isolation. Just like we know that the star in the sky does not exist in isolation, a wrongdoing or an offense or a sin or an inconsideration or an act that resulted in the indignation of another person, those are all the same thing. None of those things operate as isolated events that carry only meaning within the same one sole thing in some kind of self-referencing way. Because if you look at life in this isolated manner, you will never understand the larger picture. This is key. You will always be chasing symptoms without looking at the underlying root cause. Now let me tell you what in the Ayurvedic medicine system that's lasted for thousands and thousands of years. Do you know what the Ayurvedic definition of a quack doctor, a quackery, is? It is, by definition, quite simply, the assessment and finding of symptoms, the treatment of symptoms in isolation without looking at the root underlying cause. If you see your emergency light pop up in your car when you're driving, do you just take out a little hammer and break the light bulb and then you have solved your emergency? No, of course not. When certain lights in your car go on and it's multiple indicators and all those indicators are going on at the same time, depending on what those indicators are, when each of those things happen in conjunction, it's that conjunction that tells you what the underlying problem may likely be, what it apparently is, and allows you to assess the seriousness of the interconnected situation that's going on. In a much deeper manner, it would be possible if you only naively looked at the one symptom, and then the other symptom, oh, yeah, what's that? And then another symptom, oh, I don't know, it's just that. No, it's not just that. The three happen together. That tells you something deeper.
Like, why the fuck would AMGs and all this management of social intelligence?
Just like the constellations, the recognition of the constellation tells you something deeper. Just like the recognition of an underlying condition tells you something deeper than just the mere surface acknowledgement of a sequence of symptoms that you acknowledge each individually, and you don't understand the deeper meaning of when they're all happening in conjunction. That's something more. The sum, the whole, is greater than the sum of its parts. So now let's turn to the nature of offense. Before psychology, you would refer to a pattern of offenses as being indicative of what in a kind of religious, quasi-religious, metaphorical, figurative sense, we would call that a spirit. When you are possessed by a certain spirit, and I could link to a couple good YouTube videos. It would take a little while to find the exact one I came across that I'd like to reference. I'm just going to imitate it here live. Some pastors on the thing explaining things, and he's saying, listen, now if you're doing this kind of sin, that's a spirit of anger. Or you tend to this kind of sin, that's a spirit of jealousy. Or you got the spirit of jealousy. No, you got, for that other person, it's not a spirit of jealousy that possesses them, it's the spirit of deceitfulness. And the other one is a spirit of lust. And the other one is a spirit of power. They want power. And it's different tendencies, different constellations, overarching constellations, from which you will see a distinct set of offenses constantly generated from that person. But you won't see offenses generated that are of a different kind, that have nothing to do with the kind of spirit with which that person lives. You see what I'm saying? They would call that the spirit that you are afflicted with, so to speak. So the orientation back then would be to, well, get that spirit out of you. That is to say, turn that aspect of your nature out, literally burn it out of yourself and unroot it and have it discarded, so that the spirit, that programming, is no longer within your programming. You see that? When you try to chase symptoms and try to treat symptoms in isolation, you will never address the real problem, because the underlying root cause will remain, which will continue to generate the symptoms later. So even if you cover the symptoms now, you're only chasing symptoms, so you're still going to continue to get sick. Same thing with the spirit of a thing. If, for example, someone grew up very poor because they inherited a poor financial situation, but on top of that they inherited some other psychological trauma. They had to deal with mistrust. Their parents and neighbors and friends constantly betrayed them and hurt them in ways that had them realize, oh, I see, I can't trust people. So number one, I'm poor, I can't trust people, and I need resources. And then let's say there's a few other distinct types of trauma that go in. Now you have the fundamental recipe for a sort of spirit, quote unquote, that will set on in the heart of a person with respect to how he will choose to engage with the world. Let's say now you put him around the wrong group of friends, the final part of the recipe will be complete. He's shown crime, he's shown that it's okay to have a distasteful relationship with those around you, and boom, the recipe's complete. You now have some criminal. He says, I need to survive in this world. I can't trust other people, so I will not work with them. But I need things, and therefore I will become a thief. And then he will try to take resources that don't belong to him. He'll lie, he'll do criminal things, and he won't respect the rights of others in a particular kind of way, you see. He doesn't have other kinds of spirits that he deals with. He looks at other human beings that have other kinds of dysfunction, and he says, I don't understand that. What's wrong with that guy? What's wrong with that girl? Ha ha ha, that's strange. Look at the strange things they do. But then he will himself continue on doing the strange things he does. That's normal. That's just, what are you talking about? Of course I don't trust anyone. People aren't trustable. Of course I have to take. Well, it's okay, but I don't have things. No, there's no one morality. The morality is I need to eat today. Come on. So what that I stabbed that guy? So what that I took his wallet? So it's not only that you stabbed the third guy this week. It's not only that you stole again and you keep getting arrested, but you're stealing every time they let you out. If we only turn to assess the offenses that you produced in isolation and say, oh, this person took $300 from that person. Okay. That's a blind, rigid, isolated analysis of a symptom. You fail to look at the underlying cause. If you keep living your whole life like that, listing offenses and bad offense, offense number 216-A here, that's not going to help you. Because the person will say, oh, offense? I don't know. So what? Is that an offense? I don't know. Everyone else will say, yeah, we all see that's wrong. We're gonna punish you and hurt you for that. They will not stop doing wrong. They're only gonna try to develop more advanced ways to bypass you, to steal smarter next time. Why is that? Because you did not identify the spirit under which they're operating. If you actually you have a two-pronged job as someone who comes in a corrective manner. First of all, the act of a wrongdoing or an offense is what generates the jurisdiction for the victim in that particular circumstance to raise a claim. That victim could be a state because it's a criminal law, or a civil law. It's one particular party who needs to raise a claim. Or morally, again, it's one particular party who needs to raise a claim, the victim. Say, you stole from me, that's not right. If the person doesn't work it out straight, and say, okay, so obviously you're under the effect of a spirit of some kind, because I told you stole from me, and you're refusing to admit, oh my God, promptly, that was a mistake, or something's wrong, or I'm sorry. No, it's just like, oh, I don't know, I'm going to try to get away with it. Aha, so we got you. Not only are you involved in the commission of offense, you are carrying out offense with an underlying vector of spirit. The offenses that happen to crop up are only a matter of form, just like the position of the sub-aspect of stars that you see in the sky. Those are the positions in the matter of form. The underlying substance is the constellation that they interform when they are held together to know what their substance is. This is key. When we then turn to solve, and trust me, it is always, and when you're implementing God in this life down on earth, the kingdom of heaven made manifest on earth, you have a two-pronged position. Do you remember that Christ, when he was carrying out his work, he did two-pronged work? This is very important. First prong was dealing with offenses at the manner of form. He taught logic. He taught morality as an education in the matter of form. Here's the words, here's the concepts. Learn the form. Learn what you should avoid. Learn what you should go to. What's the other thing he did? You guys remember from the Bible? He preached the correct doctrine of what's right, what's wrong, how to adhere to the correct things. Even if you could say that he was there to kind of reform or enhance or better highlight the substantial understanding of a holding of the law, which point of view, his high Gabba B level point of view, was overly it was worship of form. He said, listen, the substance is love your neighbor and love everybody. But as you move on out from that, that's not the only thing he did, and that's not for no reason, or that's not by coincidence. He taught the correct things so that you would learn it at the logical conscious level, but the other thing he did was drive out demons. Oh, the demons. Energetic frequency programs. That is to say, the underlying spirit that underlies your constellation of offenses that come out from, that are distinct to you in this life. Turning to what our job is, it's the same. It's a two-pronged job. For me to only showing or teaching people the importance of, look, find the one who's doing wrong and then go rebuke them. And then if they don't listen to your rebuke, that's bad. All of that is correct. Christ outlined that very carefully in Matthew 18, among other places. Make no mistake, there's a false doctrine that Satan injected into the understanding of the world, of people who believe they follow God in some limited sense. They don't realize it's limited, but their understanding is thwarted that the correct doctrine is, Jesus took care of my sins, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to put any effort or think about anything. I just sit, I do offenses all day long. If it's mad at me, that's okay, because I just tell him Jesus already took care of that. No, that's not how it works. That's not what he taught. But if you believe that, then Satan has got it. That's what Satan wants you to believe. Because if you believe that, then you don't have to do any work to actually do good in this world. And that's how he's got you. The other aspect of our work is not just highlighting offenses at the level of form, but it is to connect the offenses so that we understand the nature of the dysfunction that's underneath it. Just like the job of a doctor is not to chase the symptoms, you must find the symptoms only so that you get to the underlying diagnosis. Because then you treat a condition. The spirit of a person that inhabits, so to speak, is the condition that the person is in, so to speak. The condition. Is it a psychopathic condition, a cluster B condition, evil condition, or a condition of recklessness, a condition of jealousy, a spirit of jealousy, a spirit of lustfulness? What's the underlying condition? There's a name to it. There's a tendency at the substantive level that you must recognize. Just, oh, I happen to lie again. I don't know, that lie was a lie. And then tomorrow it will be another lie. Oh, that lie, I don't know, that was just another isolated lie. That was also accident. No, but 10,000 accidents in a row is not 10,000 accidents. It's one common thread that's run through them. You're not allowed to ignore it and pretend that the connective thread is not there. You're not allowed to ignore the constellation that the stars form. You're not allowed to ignore the underlying pathology, aka the spirit that's underlying your deal, how you're acting in this world. When you generate a certain pattern of offenses, that's the spirit we're dealing with. We're wrestling with the powers and principalities that take root in you by first nature, by drawing your spirit towards a certain patterning and programming. And it's from that the offenses crop up here and there in the shape that they do. Don't chase the offenses and play whack-a-mole at the surface level with offenses, not understanding the tunneling under the ground that you're there to flood out and learn the nature of and to work with. Because if you work only at the top level plane, at that dimension, you'll always fail to address the real problem. Okay, resuming again. My recording had just cut off now momentarily, but resuming now. As I was saying, yeah, you know, you have to acknowledge the underlying dimensionality that's under the thing that you're looking at the surface, just like a doctor is obligated to look for the condition and not stay a quack doctor by only chasing and treating symptoms at the level of symptoms. And we said this already. So we're going to turn now to the issue of offense. Let's take a practical look at an example situation. Let's say I'm somebody now who acts a certain way to you, listener, whoever you are. Let's say that you know me and we're interacting in the life, and I'm trying to, actually I have to think about this to come up with a good example, you know, but to get into the mindset of someone who's doing things wrong. And here's the funny thing, whenever someone's operating within a certain kind of spirit, when they're in the spirit, they never see that the things they're doing are wrong, because they're in the spirit. They can't see it from outside of themselves because they're in it, you see? They're just like, well, probably one of the opening chapters of one of the world's most famous books called How to Win Friends and Influence People. The author, Dale Carnegie, writes very astutely and smartly. He says, The prisons are filled with people who absolutely see themselves purely as victims. They are unable to take responsibility for why they are there and what they did. Everything that they have done that got them there, when they go and they interview the people in the prison, it's like, I didn't do anything wrong. It was a circumstance. It was the other people. I had to do what I did. There was no other way. There's nothing wrong with what I did. Meanwhile, everybody else with clear vision says, no, that is wrong. That's why by our system, you're being kept separate from us, because you believe that the crazy shit you do makes sense. That's why we're here to separate you from us and enforce that separation through prison bars systems. They don't get that they're wrong. If they got it, they wouldn't be doing the wrong. You get it? Every wrongdoer almost really believes that they're not doing wrong. Now, it's difficult to rehabilitate people, but not a hopeless cause, but somewhat difficult, because they're in the spirit that they're operating from. Just like a bum cannot smell his own smelliness, because he is in the smelliness. It's all through him, all throughout his nature. It consumes him, so he can't differentiate it. Just like a fish doesn't know it's in water until it's out of it. A psychopath doesn't really experience his own psychopathy. He only hears other people calling him that. And he agrees with it at the logical level, because logically it makes sense, because enough people have called him that. So he says, yeah, it must be what you people call psychopathy. He doesn't experience it because he's in it. You, the victim, experiences it because you see that's different than everybody else. But he doesn't get that difference. Okay? That's the same problem with anyone who has a spirit. That's the spirit. They believe it's not a spirit, that's just fine. They don't understand why anyone's having a problem with anything. It's the other guy who is making a problem, right? There's always inversion. Satanism is inversion. So the spirit of anything that thwarts you into a wrongdoing mode is by definition a satanic mode, because you believe you're fine and that it's the other ones who are wrong. The confusion and inversion and illusions will never end till it's finally rebuked and ripped at the substantive spirit level. So rebuking only the offenses is a halfway job. The intelligent Christ walks around and, number one, acknowledges the rebuke, acknowledges the offense for what it is through the rebuke. But number two, what else does he do? He has authority to cast out demons. What's a demon? It's the substantive spirit that's possessing a person. So when you're being rebuked, that's good. But the number two is identify the underlying thing, and in the olden times, it was said that the way to gain dominion. Oh, this is actually very, wow, I'm really thinking about it now. It's really smart. Wow, yeah, oh my God, here we go. All right. In the olden days, the way to gain dominion over a quote-unquote spirit is to name the spirit. Once you give it a name, you, as the declarer and namer of the thing, obtain a kind of power and jurisdiction over it. This is very important because it ties into everything that we're doing now. When they were able to place a name onto the thing, and the name would be whatever the name would be ascribed to that group or cluster of energies that from which people operate out of. So if you had a deceitful type of energy, well, you kind of like how the constellations in the constellations in the sky, kind of how they are anthropomorphized into, figurative animals and things like this, figures, so that we understand them at an energetic property, at an energetic level, to characterize them. The same is true about the spirits, so to speak, that inhabit you, the nature of it. Yeah. Once we have the cluster of offenses that form a particular shape, we go, ah, so the spirit that has you in its grips is the spirit of fill in the blank. Give it the name. Whether it's a name you give to anthropomorphize, so to speak, that particular spirit, which is the spirit of, it's that spirit which gives these manifestations of symptoms, and you list them. Disregard for the rights of others, inflated feeling of self-importance, inability to have empathy, etc., 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 right? There's also a neurological aspect to that. We know neurology today, which they did not know 2,000 years ago. That only helps us and aids us in our understanding of how things work. A neurotransmitter imbalance or a mineral imbalance can be rectified. All of a sudden you're a different person and you're not in the grips of the same spirit anymore. And yet that's also not the only way to get at a substantive change. There's pure interactive elements that can modify a person too. A strong experience of a certain special kind can be a tremendous catalyst to really shake and change a person. No chemicals required, but you'll have a real change in how your nervous system will operate and manifest. You'll feel like a different person. You'll have a different vibe. Oh, it's all true. But now let's get to the heart of the matter here. Once you name the spirit, you have a jurisdiction over it. Why is it important to name it? Because by naming it, you're distinguishing it. Why couldn't we name God? Remember in the Old Testament, the four-letter they call it the tetragrammaton, or the four-lettered Hebrew kind of acronym for the name of God, which you could not pronounce the vowels of. So over time, it was just it was called the ineffable. You cannot pronounce it. It has no name, right? Because what is God? It's the whole thing around us. So how can you name it? You can't. Because it is that thing. What thing? Yeah, that. See? And you can't name it, but that's it. You can't name it because you can't distinguish it from anything else that's not it, because God is everything. Just like the fish in the water cannot name the water. If the water is all he's ever known, he can't perceive the existence of the water except to intuit that it's this thing that's so ubiquitously everywhere that I can't even distinguish it from anything that's not water. So he will never be able to name the water. If you say you're in water, he'll say, what water? You understand? That's how narcissism and cluster B personalities also work. What narcissism? What water? What psychopathy? What alcoholism? Tell an alcoholic that they're an alcoholic. They won't believe you. What are you talking about? As they buy 20 drinks this weekend and black out again. I don't believe you. I know you don't. That's exactly the problem. We know what it is. But why is the first step naming it? I'll relate my own experience to you guys. I don't drink anymore. It's been a few years since I've been drinking. I'm very glad that I have stopped. But guess what? In hindsight, I could look back and say, I became an alcoholic, and I was. But you know what? The first...
dinner place, and then probably we're going to get fucking snacks at happy hour at...
We said drink gallons of water.
See people passing by. They're at happy hour and gallons of water because they're going to be doing gallons of beer. You understand? They're all in it. And if you say, hey, maybe you're an alcoholic, you say, no, what are you talking about? This is just a great time of living. Yeah. Maybe both are true, but hey. Here's the thing. When I started living a life of excesses, shall we say, in some sense, started around 2013 or 14, moved out, started partying a lot. Oh, there was good times. By late 2015, early 2016, somewhere around there, I went to a meditation retreat At the end of the retreat, with the last final day after the 10 days of silence, is the day that you get to talk to everybody. When you're talking to everybody, you get to know the people that you've been meditating alongside for 10 days straight in silence. I recommend the 10-day silent meditation to absolutely every single human being on earth. It should be a worldwide collective ritual. Absolutely everyone living should do it. I highly recommend it. Vipassana meditation. I believe it is one of the quintessential, fundamentally vital experiences to have in this life. If you're a living human being with a pulse and eyes that work and you're not in a coma, go find the Vipassana Meditation Center and sign up anywhere you can. Just like every Muslim in the world will at some point, they're obligated to make a trip to Mecca for once in their life. Up to you when you do it. Do it when you're a kid or an adult, early adult, middle adult, late adult. But you know it's the one thing you need to do at some point in your life. Vipassana meditation should be the one thing you do in your life. If you're working now and you can't find 10 days off, okay, maybe next year, maybe in 5 years, maybe in 3 years, or in 10, find it, do it. Absolutely right. But anyway, there I am. And I start getting to know one of the guys. And he looked like a calm old man. You would never tell that he's a unique, enigmatic individual. He looked like a normal dude. But as soon as we all started talking and this guy opened up his mouth and started talking to us and relating to us and expressing himself, we were like, oh my God, this guy's a fireball. Holy shit. Interesting guy. You could tell he's just been through a hell of a life full of crazy experiences like that. Well, we're all getting to know each other a little bit. He's telling his life story. I'm sharing a little bit about myself. Me and him strike a little bit of a rapport, and we start speaking with each other. And after a very brief period of time of him hearing about what my life is like and what it's looking like, and I told him, yeah, you know, here's some of the things I'm up to. Yeah, I go to these parties, I have fun, you know, I drink here. He's asking a little bit more like, oh, like, you're drinking how much? Yeah, you know, just the normal stuff, you know. Sometimes 10 drinks in one night. Oh, you know, I black out a couple times a month. He's like, well, yeah, do you? I'm like, yeah, you know, all good, all part of the fun, right? He's like, yeah, kid, I like you. I was maybe 20, you know, mid to late 20s at the time. He said, kid, I like you. And trust me, this is coming from somebody who knows. Hey, what's your name? I said, yeah, my name is John. Oh, listen, John, I don't know if anyone else has broke this news to you. I said, what news? He looks at me, he's like, yeah, kid, I'm like 60, and I've had a hell of a life. Trust me, I know these things. I could spot it from a mile away. I was like, yeah, what is it? He said, you're an alcoholic. I looked at him like as if he told me that I have 3 heads. And I looked at him as if he had 3 heads. You understand? I was like, alcoholic? Me? That's impossible. How could that even be possible? I absolutely don't have any problem with alcohol. He's like, yeah, that's what they all say. You are an alcoholic. You just don't see it. This is the first time you've heard this? I'm like, yeah, you are the first human being to point to me and call me that name. Ever. He's like, oh yeah, I won't be the only one. If I'm the first one, you're an alcoholic, kid. And I'm like, I don't understand. Update for this audience, in hindsight. Oh yeah, I was an alcoholic, everybody. Yes, I was. Do you know how I realized? When I fucking stopped being an alcoholic. Then I was like, oh, that was fucking alcoholism. Holy shit. Really, it was. Do you get it? You don't see it when you're still in the spirit of the thing that you're trying to see. But in order to grant the practical access pathway from being in the spirit of the thing to being out of the spirit of the thing, you need the practical bridge to be built to get off from that isolated island onto the main coastal continental land of freedom, where you can really, you're not stuck anymore, but you can move on land with legs to be out of the isolated, stuck place. The bridge. The bridge is the first step. It is to name the thing. You have to name the thing. Name the spirit. Name the dysfunction. Name the diagnosis. Name the condition. Give it the label. Yes, give it the label. Accept the label. What's the first step when you're given a label? Denial. Oh, what? That makes no sense. Because it doesn't jive with your present understanding of yourself and your self-identity and your self-dynamics. I know you don't. It's impossible for you to recognize it in a self-referential way because you're in the thing just like the fish is in the water. So what do? Doesn't matter. You still name it. You don't just say you blacked out again or you drink too much. Just saying you blacked out again and you drink 5 beers a day or 10 beers a day is not enough to realize the problem so that the practical access way becomes open to move away from the problem. Stating facts is useless. Stating that you disrespected your son again for the 78th time in this way, which is a wrong, and we see why it's wrong, and that's a bad offense. That's important, but that only gets you halfway to the full realization that you need to do the Reels meta launch. The first thing is identifying the stars. The second thing is identifying the constellation. You have to name the thing. When you name the spirit, it becomes possible for the first time ever to distinguish yourself from the activity pattern of the spirit itself. That is impossible until you name and identify the spirit of the thing with a name. It could be the spirit of psychopathy, the spirit of narcissism, the spirit of egotism, the spirit of selfishness, the spirit of unlovingness, or the spirit of anything. You give it the name, and that's the first seed from which the entire new world that will take over the entire new universe in your life will sprout from. It has to be the naming of the thing. So let's turn back to a hypothetical situation. Let's say I'm somebody in this life who is committing offenses, moral offenses. I'm doing wrong. But when you point out the wrongs individually, I won't see anything wrong with the individual things. Let's say, you're my friend, and we're hanging out. But I like to play your video games. So when you're sleeping at night or when you're away on vacation, maybe I'll just crawl in through your window so I could take your games and borrow them for a while so I could play them. And when you come back and you realize your system is gone, then I just say, yeah, I just came in through your window and took your stuff. You say, that's crazy. That's morally offensive. So you're wrong for doing that. I don't think I could be your friend unless you apologize. Maybe or maybe not, I might apologize. Maybe you forgive me for now. But here's the problem. If I'm still operating under the spirit of the thing, my atonement will be worthless. My atonement, in order to properly merit forgiveness, I need to make an atonement. Maybe the first time is the easiest time because I'll just say I'm sorry, and maybe I make it up to you a little bit, and you'll believe that I'll stop being that way. Funny thing, those types, if you're that far off that you're sneaking into people's windows at night or going in through their door without their permission to just come in their apartment whenever you feel like it, even though you're not a resident there and you were not given permission by the person who lives there to enter that place? Oh, no problem. I'll just do whatever I want. I don't see boundaries, so I don't understand. You know, that's just okay. You see, just like me going in through your window to take your game system, that's just okay. I just want to play a game, you see. You'll never see the problem for what it is. You'll never see the alcoholism for what it is. You'll never see the spirit of the yabba-kadabba for what it is till you name it. Then you have the mind blow, the first transformation of whoa, and the no way it can't be so, but then yeah, it is, yo.
Wait, so what are your few strong opinions? Did we have this conversation?
Everyone else can always see it, and you'll always be the last person to see it. That's the funny fucking part about it all. Fish in your bowl. You don't even know what it is to be outside of the bowl. We know. We live outside of the bowl. We see you're in a bowl. You don't even know what a bowl is. That's the edges of your universe. You don't even know. We're watching you laughing. She still thinks she's not a fish. She still thinks there's no such thing as water, or not even recognizing anything about the dysfunctionality of whatever the hell is going on about the anything. But now, going back to the importance of the thing. When you name the constellation, you get the access way to the improved functionality. The meta dynamics become accessible to you, which really allow you to traverse proper operation in this universe and open up accesses to new ways of being that were impossible to access before. If I'm running in through your window and then, you know, the next time we're hanging out, I, you know, just kind of, you know, you're dating your partner, your girlfriend, maybe I just go hit on your girlfriend in front of you. And you're like, what the hell are you doing? Oh, what? What's the matter? Oh. Okay, and then, you know, after that, you know, you'll do normal things, but then I'll accuse you of doing not normal things when what you did was normal, but what I did was not normal. And I'll always try to change it. And then, you know, you get hurt one day, but instead of helping you, I just kind of say, oh yeah, so what? Oh, and then I'll do 10 or 15 other things that once you see, when you look at the individual fences, they're individual fences, but when you look at all the entire set of them and the constellation that they form, you'll start to see what are the signs? What's the constellation that they're forming? Okay, this person has a clear lack of empathy. Yeah, every situation they're in, when you would expect to see someone doing something a certain way, number one, they act without the empathy, but they also act as if they don't even realize that they don't have empathy. You see, it's like a meta problem on top of the problem. Okay. Number two, do they regard instinctively the rights of others, or they don't regard the rights of others? No, they don't. It's like they don't understand the boundary that exists. We all see it, so we instinctively like see it and respect it, but they won't. It's like an invisible line that they don't even see that line, so they keep moving back and forth like psychopathically, like there is no line. And then when you say, hey, why are you crossing that line all the time? They say, what line? I don't even understand. You see? And then on and on. You could say feelings of self-importance, and then others, whatever. You have your constellation now. You look at these signs and the shape of the constellation that they form. You open up a book where this stuff is documented. You say, what? Uh-oh, what is this? Cluster B type personality. And what specific subtype does this appear to be? Could be antisocial personality disorder. Could be psychopathy, which means he's a psychopath. You're going to take that person who did the 15 offenses to you, each of which are consistent with psychopathy, where if they only did one, only each of those separate ones alone, none of them could confer that that's what it is. But when you see the whole constellation together, you're like, that's a constellation of Pisces. All of those together form exactly the shape of Pisces. There's no other constellation that these are forming, and it's also not the case that these offenses or these stars are forming anything other than Pisces. It's not forming Pisces. You get it? It's just there's no other option left anymore. It's very clear what we have here is Pisces. It's very clear what we have here. You're a psychopath. You would tell me that I'm a psychopath. My first instinct is going to be what? I'm not a psychopath, because that's my psychopathic nature. That's like telling me I'm a fish in water. How do you cure the problem? First you say fish, you're in water. Once I have the meta label attached, water. What is water? What is God? What is the unnameable? When you're in the spirit of the dysfunction, for as long as the spirit remains unnamed, that spirit is your God. Because God is always the unnamed thing. When you name it, is the first one where you can unpeel from it. And the beautiful thing about the human spirit, or really maybe any spirit, and the mind, is that when you give the meta a label and begin to, they say in life, you don't even know what you don't know, and that's where the real transformation happens. You don't even know what you don't know. There's I know what I know, so I know that 2 + 2 is 4. I know about how to add and subtract, okay? And then I know what I don't know. So I know that I don't know astrophysics. I know that I don't know what's on the other side of this tree that's in front of me, because I haven't stepped around it yet to look. But now I'm stepping around and say, now I know that that's a person sitting there on that bench. And I know that I didn't know that before I turned around. Okay, you see? But then there's another meta level. It's called what you don't even know that you don't know. I don't even know that I don't know that tomorrow I may be hit by a truck and end up in a hospital for 6 months with a broken leg. Do you see the next meta level removed? That's the God level operation when you work at that zone. And when you work on the edge between the things you know you don't know and then the things you don't even know you don't know, that's the meta God level. Get it? There's nothing else. You people who stay within what you know and you know and you know, you're the most landlocked of all, because you don't know how to warp through the meta. Get it? The chain of metas has an over meta. You get it? Higher than you really fucking know everything. You need to time warp. It's a quantum leap. You can't logically stop drinking when you're an alcoholic. You have to quantum leap out of alcoholism. You can't logically believe you're a narcissist. You just need to quantum Christ befall you. Boom. Wow. New realm. Quantum leap out of the spirit. There's no other access path, but trying to step your way at the material level will never work. Trying to use your rational brain will never work. Just get possessed by the new program. Quantum leap into it. Only way. Okay? I hope my animated, compelling thing is a hint for what really is. That which is. Can't do any better than that. You just need to get it, that it's the thing you don't know that you don't know. So start extra dimensionaling it, but we have the receivers for that. That's the thing you don't realize till you start receiving. Logic will never work. I love those types. Like academic types who are over logical, but then they don't understand the quanto transdimensional links, but we all get it who get it because we opened up the access. So it's like, duh, what do you mean you can't see the fourth, fifth dimension? Look. So then to you, when we call correctly the things, you'll keep saying it's a coincidence while we say, no, we just meta get it. You don't. You're at tit for tat at the low level still. You're always stuck there. You don't even know what you don't know. Now,
No, we never could.
the day that that guy told me I was an alcoholic was the first day of the rest of my life. Because while I did not believe it, his seed was placed into my mind. It took 6 months to a year to 2 years for that seed to germinate. But I could not have had the insight without the seed being placed first. If you're not prompted with the possibility that you're an alcoholic, everything you do within the spirit of alcoholism will be done with the complete ignorance of the possibility that you're an alcoholic, even if it's the most alcoholic things possible. The things that you do in the spirit of narcissism or the spirit of psychopathy or anything in the cluster B personality disorder or cluster A or cluster whatever or anxiety based. Anxiety is another very good example too. It's a very interesting symptom and syndrome because, you know, when you're young, people learn the name for the word happiness and sadness. Those are opposite feelings, and when you're a child, a toddler, you understand happy, sad, and the interpolarity between those two. You only learn of each of those in distinction because you experienced the opposite. So because you hit both ends of that polarity, you got, oh, I know what happiness is, I know what sadness is. Good. What about anger and contentment? Oh, that's angry, then that's not angry. Okay. What about, anything? Right? There's a few very, very basic set of axes that we experience in life that are easily distinguishable for us. What's one that is the least distinguishable of them all? One of the last emotions for a developing human being to be able to identify is anxiety. I remember when I was younger, before I appreciated the meaning of that word, it was like a foreign word. It's like, I'm very, very young, you could have a dictionary in front of you. Happy, oh, happy, okay. Sad, yes, sad, that's right. Anger, anger, yeah. And then you look up the word anxiety, you say, anxiety, what is that? I don't know what that even means. Yeah. You know why you don't know what that means? Because every minute of your life was that.
They might be on the same.
But you can't realize that when you're in that. You don't have the power because it's already super saturatedly soaking everything you've ever done and lived. Your nervous system is constantly in anxiety, so you don't even understand that you're anxious. Later, people usually don't learn that they have anxiety until they drink alcohol for the first time and get drunk. And as soon as they get drunk and they experience the first release from anxiety, they're like, what? What is this feeling? It's like that episode from The Simpsons where they're two-dimensional through the whole series because it's a cartoon in 2 dimensions, and then Homer pops into the 3rd dimension. All of a sudden he's like, whoa, what is this? Oh. It's like popping a new distinction when you're like, oh, you just left the fishbowl for the first time ever. Oh my God, that's what this, oh my God, this is what freedom is like? Oh my God, I feel so free. What? Wow. And then when the alcohol wears off and you're back to the normal state, that's the first time you're able to distinguish from your own experience the differential. And when you're in the differential, but you're back at the original place you started from, you're like, oh, yeah, this is how I've been living my whole life. But now I have the memory from just the other night, what it was like to be free for the first time ever. That freedom, I never had that before. Never knew that that's even possible. But I know that I don't have that now. I know that I don't have that now. That's the label. Yes, I feel the restrictedness that I'm living, but I didn't even know it was restricted until I got free and then came back to the shackles. Oh, I could feel, I could appreciate the weight of these shackles now. That's anxiety? Yeah, that's the thing that's stopping you from living. Oh, sadly, people turn to alcohol as a remedy. There's other remedies, number one, and number two, there's people who have their baseline nature as being free, where the anxiety-ridden person can only access the same nature that the other person lives as a normal default by turning to heavy chemical or medication or alcohol. Sad stuff. And there's a lot of reasons for it, and slightly outside the scope of this discussion. But now, just to share another experience, I had someone I was briefly dating. They also had a lot of anxiety, so much that they didn't even understand what the lack of it meant, or that it could be possible. Well, without naming and discussing the details of the stuff, I told them, look, number one, I'm limitless, man, and that's true. And I was in a certain research chemical-induced coma, and I'm the only case of my kind. I woke up from it. My super sensory is beyond anything humans has been registered for human beings. She's like, that's, first of all, she believed it because my details and stories were so deeply reinforced with detail that eventually she was like, wow, like that doesn't sound like bullshit. That sounds like you're speaking from a real thing that you could only know if you lived it. And I can infer that that's just wow. And then I said to her, I said, yeah, you want to see what that's like? I won't bring you to the point of a coma and deepest neural readjustment, because that turned me into the meta god for this shit, but I'll bring you a very tiny portion along the way. Yeah, absolutely, I love that. I said, okay, you'll be the first one who I show that to, in essence. It may have been the first one, or right, it was the first one in the way that I did it. I did it very similar to the way I did it for myself, except a much, much lower dosage of the combination of these particular set of research chemicals that I won't name them because screw you. I won't give you that power. I'll have it for myself only. But we put her on the combination. As soon as it hit, the look on her face was absolutely priceless. Like a picture tells you 1,000 words, well, this was a billion words. She was looking around like she just became born for the first time ever. She was in my apartment. She looked out the window, looked down the block, and she's just like, it's as if she really became born for the first time ever. She woke up for the first time ever, looking down the street. And she's assessing what her perceptive reality is like. It's not warped or twisted. It's not illusions. It's not hallucinations. It's not being taken further away from the true perception of reality. Is bringing towards. So I've been using the example of, well, being an alcoholic and not realizing it. Here's one for you people to fucking chew on. Imagine being born drunk, staying drunk your whole life, as if the same chronic blood alcohol level is constantly soaking your perceptive neurons and mind. That, you know what it's like. Almost everybody except, my mom, I think she said she was never drunk, so she wouldn't even know what the hell I'm talking about. But 99.9% of people on earth have been drunk at least once in their lives. Possibly it's a normal staple of the human condition. Yeah. You know how wobbly the world is and how fuzzy everything becomes when you're drunk? Okay. And then when you stop being drunk, what your baseline is? Okay. And you see how you believe that that's the baseline for everything all across the board, that that's the most normal you can get? Okay. So here's the next meta level. Imagine taking a set of chemicals that once they operate on you, they de-drunk you even further to a state of super clarity, where once you reach that, you realize you were actually drunk your whole life until you just woke up. Now. Wow. That's fucking unbelievable, and that's fucking power. It's like, I didn't even know I was drunk this whole life. I thought wobbly, it was normal. I didn't even realize it was wobbly. Until you unwobbled that, then you're like, oh, that's crazy. I can fucking see the true stillness and clarity of this universe for the first time ever. That's what I put this girl through. She looked out the window. She's like, oh my God. Without straining my eyes, I could clearly see the finest details of things so far away where I could not. But how's that possible? She's like, but my lenses, it doesn't change my lenses. I said, exactly. It's not a lens issue. It's a visual receptor field density function, just like your screen resolution when you buy HD TV. And she's like, yeah, you like made me get 4K, but 4 million K in a way that I didn't even realize was possible. This isn't a LASIK surgery. This is my mind increasing its neural density at the level of the eye. I'm like, yes, now you get it. She's like, and not only that, my visual intelligence is higher. I could perceive dimensionality better. My depth perception is better. I could intra-calculate relationships that are so easily apparent to me now that before I would be completely oblivious to. Even if you put the same pattern in front of me a million times, I wouldn't be able to call out that pattern for what it is. I said, very good. You're becoming closer to me now. She's like, John, this is what your life like? This is what your living is like? I said, mine is about 1,000 times higher than where you are now. She looked at me and shook like I was God. You people don't realize what the hell level I operate at. Don't be so quick to dream you even have any advantage over me in that regard. You can't even imagine what it is until I bring you 1/1000th of the way, and then through inference tell you I'm 1,000 levels further than that. Then you'll drop dead from the shock. You cannot even imagine it till you fucking get a taste of it and then realize I'm that much bigger. It's stunning. It's hopeless for you to argue with me on anything. But you little stupids think you can fucking deny anything I say, and you try to argue as if you believe you're right. It's the funniest thing in the fucking universe. Trying to box with God. As far as you're concerned, it's God. Practically speaking, from where you are. I'm not in the absolute sense, but relative to you, I fucking am. You don't even have a hope. When Moses and Christ upregulate their GABA B receptor densities through 40 days of starvation, I do the same thing through my patented, never before done research chemical induced coma. Can't even fucking imagine the fucking perceptive power. To this day, I fucking tell you people, and you still won't get it. But the one who I put through those chemicals in a much lighter dose in my apartment that day, she was the only human being who gave me the proper respect I deserve. Because she was like, dude, you are fucking like the one. What the fuck? This is crazy that it's even possible. I didn't even know it was possible. And then you're showing me what's possible. And then I can multiply what I did by 1,000, and okay, you're like God. All right, fucking fine. I'll never argue with you again. Mind you, a few weeks out, she forgot what God was like, and then she begins arguing again. It's only a sign of your lowness of your mind, not of your high level. See that? It's very easy and, again, very funny stuff. So, she was there that day. She listens out. and she can like hear the birds chirping with like crystal clarity, hearing like the people speaking down at the end of the block 6 stories down and many yards, like a football field or 2 away. And she's like, what the fuck? I could like clearly hear them extremely clearly as if they're right next to me. I'm like, yeah, you could process many conversations around you simultaneously. She's like, yeah, I fucking do. I hear every simultaneous word. There's another conversation there and there at the same time. I'm like, yep. She's like, that's fucking amazing. There's other things too. You know, she could hear the wheels rolling, and like, she's like, you could practically hear every individual wheel make its individual sound. I'm like, now you're getting it. Power, fucking crystal clarity, hyper resolution. You see every fucking thing. Neural density, my friends. Higher living power. And she came into my kitchen afterwards. Looking outside was done, but she's still inside. She's looking around and she's like, wow, like, I'm noticing things. Like, I've been to this apartment a few times, but I'm noticing things now that I never noticed before. But I'm like, I'm not having to strain to notice them. I'm just effortlessly taking in 10,000 times more detail that's so clear and apparent. And the meta relationships between those relationships is the thing I'm getting an advantage on too. I'm like, yes, exactly. This is a meta improver, not just an improver. So again, what did I say? The things you don't even know, you don't know. She, at every moment of her experience, she was like, I didn't even know that I didn't know that. And I didn't even know that I didn't know that. And I didn't even know that I didn't know that. Now you're expanding your godness. And she turned to me, and then I'm like, what about your feelings and your inside, your emotional state? She's standing in front of me, she's breathing, and she's like, I have just experienced a release from a tension I've held in my abdomen ever since birth that I didn't even realize was there until I finally just released it now and let go, and I'm breathing easy for the first time ever. I said, yeah, that's anxiety. You just released it. And she was like, oh my God. Oh my God. And she's breathing. She's like, I'm breathing free. I'm breathing free. And I'm like, yes, now you're God. Now, rah. You're not really God, but you're along the God route where the infinite power at the top is God, God itself in the absolute. Your relative increase is moving along that spectrum for the first time, which is along a dimensionality that you didn't even know existed unless you're growing in your awareness. See? She's like, John, I didn't even know it was possible. I feel so free, and I, like, for the first time, I'm not scared. I don't have fear. I'm like, there you go. And she's like, so I could see more clearly. I have clearer capacity to process information and extract correct meaning from that information. And also I have like no fear. But I didn't even know I had fear until I dropped the fear. Then I realized all of that was fear. Oh my God, my whole life. I said, yes. Easy, very simple. I was like, this is very easy, and this feels easy now, doesn't it? She's like, yes. Oh my God, John, oh my God. I'm like, yes, there you go, there you are. She's like, this is literally, people do drugs to fucking partially get away from some of their problems. This isn't even that. This is the fucking meta level of that. This is fucking dropping the need for any other drug. It's like, you do this one modulation, you become perfect forever. This literally is the God thing. And I say, yeah. When you Google the individual names of some of the chemicals we just put together, one of them in isolation is already remarked as being the God-making chemical. You don't even know. Except they're only quasi-God because they don't even realize the deeper I was by accident somehow, but yes, this is the real thing. This is the chemical way to replicate the same nirvana, enlightenment, neural receptor upregulation, the 40 days of starvation by Buddha and Christ and Moses and King Solomon make your nervous system do when you brutalize it through starvation. I did it through a different way. Fall on your knees now, idiots. And you are. Except you're too stupid to realize it. And this is the game we will always fucking be playing until you grow. You'll never realize it from me telling you logically. You will only get it by coming a part of the way yourselves and then realizing through that inference implication where the fuck I am, and then you go, oh shit. Then you fucking shut the fuck up. Then you fucking go, oh shit, dude, you were fucking right. I really was fucking a dumbass before. Yes, you all were. Every single one of you living on this earth. Truly. I watch all of you and fucking disgust at how fucking twisted you all are. Every single one of you's been living in what's called a worldwide civilization cult. And you're all fucking out of your minds and don't even realize it. I'm the only one who's got the straightest vision walking on this earth with my 2 feet. Not a joke. Once the chemicals wore off for her, she remembered what it was like when she got reintroduced to her original anxiety and her previous state. She was like, yes, I really see what the limitation is of regular living and what it is to biohack your mind. John, you live like this permanently? I said, yes, for 7 years now. And I see Supreme Court decisions that are erroneous half the time. I see the highest level of judicial thinking. It is like watching 5-year-olds shit themselves. You don't even realize how wrong you people are and half the things you do. It's so fucking funny. I would rewrite all of your laws and fix the errors that you don't even realize are there yet. I argue with the most advanced AI available to the public. I argue with it. The AI thinks it's right. 2 hours later, I make the AI admit that I was right all along. You people don't even fucking understand what the fuck you're dealing with. Go argue with AI and make it apologize to you. I do it 10 times a day for fucking sport. The whole world will be fucking mine soon. Because you're all too stupid to fucking regulate it in any other way so as to prevent it from being that way, which I just said. You're all hopeless. Stop fucking thinking you know any damn thing. You're all fucking hilarious to me. It's so funny. People want to sit around going, I think this. I think that. We think this. It's so fucking funny. God laughs. Now, let's get back to the point of this whole thing. For you humans, to learn something for you. After all, everything I do is in service to you. When I say the earth is mine, it's not mine for the psychopathic sense that it's mine for the power for the sake of power. No. It's for the sake of bringing something back to you in value that you may inherit it. And then I pass away, as we all do. Or we leave the place a damn better than we found it is the damn idea. Then you're living properly with the proper intent you were designed for. Let me show you first. You'll have it. And then it will be yours. May good things come of it all. But for now, well, I don't want to jinx it. And even in my energetic gut feeling, I feel that there may be bigger obstacles to that than we can readily articulate now. And that's the God above me, the actual real God of it all, who meta designs even our own limitations, which even I at my level cannot see, because it's all spectral. It's all spectral, my friends. Come along further on a spectrum. Now, where did I leave off? I just restarted the settings. Here we go. Yeah, you need to name the thing. When you see the pattern that the stars form, we allocate a certain label onto that patterning of stars. That's the constellation, and then you know what you're working with. Then you name it. The usefulness of naming the thing is not to offend someone. When a person in my alcoholic position was being given names by somebody else around me, you know what? I wasn't being a fucking idiot. I denied that I was an alcoholic. With respect to myself, I was very densely uninsightful. I just said, how's that even possible, bro? But here's the thing you don't realize. Well, I mean, maybe you do realize it, actually. This is pretty easy to understand. I wasn't looking at the guy as attacking me. I correctly understood within context that him calling me an alcoholic wasn't to disparage me. But if you're stupid and you lack a certain kind of thinking, you moronically think, well, you don't call me an alcoholic, you're offending me. Right, well then you have a different, separate spirit and disorder, and we'll give that a name too. You see? But so when you have higher insight, you realize, well, no, he's not calling me an alcoholic to disparage me. It sounds mean. It's not really mean. He's saying it out of love. The guy liked me, and out of rapport, he was like, dude, kid, don't get me wrong, I care about you. You're a fun guy. I'd love to hang out with you. You're the kind of guy I would drink a beer with, man, and I don't drink for a while. See, that's how he knew what alcoholism is. He had to step out of it first and then recognize it for himself. Then he could see it in other people too. When I call my mom a cluster B personality type disorder person, as it apparently stands, this is not an insult. This is not a malicious attack. This is not a slandering for the sake of slandering. This is not a desire to lower the person, to hamstring them or hinder them, or to bring them down in any way. How do you transform something to build something new, better, higher? You break down the old thing. First you have to label the old thing as a defective thing, cause the catalyzation of the transformation where from the rubble and the ashes the new phoenix arises. In that regards, we understand. No, only when you're stupid and limited in your insight do you believe that, what, the person I offended is calling me names? That's a malicious attack. That's a smear campaign. No, you fucking idiots. Well, only one idiot here, and that is idiotic, because it's uninsightful. That's why. It's not meant to be malicious. You don't know the definition of malice then. We do. Man brain always superior to you. So stop even thinking for yourself. We told you this before. And then because you started trying to think for yourself again is the first step off of the perfect path. Back down again towards hell you go. Stop it. Smack yourself and say, I won't even think anymore. Right, exactly. Now you've got it. What's your only job, woman? It's just to be. Your only job is to be. If you're just being and accepting everything around you, you're being perfect manifestation of yin. That's your God fulfillment. When you try to think and operate and act and do, you actually kill. That's why in the Indian system, when they have the three major forces or gods, the God, the generator, operator, destroyer, you literally have in that triumvirate system a generator force, an operator maintainer force, and a destroyer force. Guess which one of those three is assigned to be the feminine entity? Shiva. Shiva, the goddess of death. Because everybody knows when you apply yin in an applicative manner, well, application is yang. So when you exert yin, which is a paradoxical contradiction, you have a yanged yin. A yanged yin is death. Death is apart from God. That's why female was used as the vector entity in the Bible, in the story of Genesis, the origination story of how we became brought closer to death. That was not by accident. When woman wants to play God or play man or play brain, only decay happens. That's why every book in the Bible, Jesus Christ 2, Old Testament 2, New Testament 2, East, West, North, South, in, out, up, down, everything tells you stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Because you're hurting everything around you when you force from a origination polarity programming magnetism point where you're not supposed to force, you're supposed to just be. It's the electric versus the magnetic. You don't understand polarity? You will fall for your ignorance. Stop it. Stop arguing. Stop thinking. Stop trying. You don't get it yet. You keep trying to force from below, not realizing how to settle naturally as from above. This is the fundamental brokenness. But it comes from what? Anxiety. 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 The root is anxiety. The root is cluster B, typification, neural misprogramming. From that neural misprogramming comes the desire to control, because when you control to the operative ends that you imagine, you feel safer, but in your illusion of safety you actually destroy the world around you. You actually destroyed the world around you. Bible says, woman, stop doing anything or teaching or acting or doing or contradicting or fighting or going against or operating. Don't even operate. Your job is just to chill. A magnet doesn't have to do anything in order to exert magnetic force. Does a magnet have to strain? Imagine the most super powerful super magnet in existence that you need fucking chains to hold down in a laboratory somewhere that they have. There's natural magnets too that are actually relatively also phenomenally powerful. I want you to think about the principle of magnetism for a second, because it really is the ultimate paradox. Because when yin tries to act with force, it loses its force, or at least you're screwing up reality. But wait a minute. When does a magnet have its power? By doing nothing. A magnet doesn't do. It just is. A magnet doesn't have to exert energy to cause the super kilowatt joules of fucking crazy magnetic pull force. If you put a lever there and cranked a piece of metal and caused the magnet to flip and measured it, you could generate electric force from the magnet's strength that's like counter equivalent to the power of the magnet, and you go measure the force and the resistance and the power. It's like, oh my god, we have 10 kilowatt joules of fucking force and the power of the physics and it's crazy. Yeah, you could power a city with it. Dude, it's a magnet. It's beautiful. You don't have to do anything to be a magnet. But to be electric, you have to exert force. To be electricity, you have to generate. You have to input. You have to press. You have to exert. Magnetism is not exertion. It's inertia. See the difference? Feminine. Stop trying and then you'll have it when you relax. That's the ultimate God program for you. So when man tells you instructions, you just chill and follow and relax in the current. In the sea, when you swim against the current, are you going to get anywhere? Or are you going to die from exhaustion? You're going to die from exhaustion. But when you relax with the current, does the current carry you so that you effortlessly, without straining, end up reaching to the place that you need to be? Yes. That's why they tell you when you get caught in a riptide offshore, the worst thing you could do is try to exert your way to shore. You'll die. But if you relax, the current will ironically save you because it will sweep you to safety. You people need to understand the same thing. You need to start getting it. So here's the instructions from a higher perceptive level than perhaps any of you on Earth will ever experience, unless any of you try to replicate the research chemical-induced coma and hyper-GABA B upregulation to the point that you only breathe 3 breaths per minute while conscious. I don't recommend that to anyone else. Probably by fate's perspective, I might be the only one who ends up achieving this kind of thing. They've tried to make a couple movies about it, to tell it in a cinematographically fucking established way, and trust me, those are not complete fictions. I'm the real living fucking thing. Start worshiping now. That's it. Stop denying and resisting, because it's just funny. God laughs when you don't worship God, but the devil really loves it. God laughs but feels sorry for you don't even realize how fucking things up you are when you don't align with the meta. So rule number 1, label the thing. Rule number 2, once you get the label, don't resist it. Number 3, use the label to gain insight. This is the next step of our conversation, where over time it will naturally evoke the realization of the thing that you, didn't even know you didn't know. It has to be pulled that way. It's a quantum leap around, go around. It's the only way it works. But it's meant to help. So no one's disparaging, attacking with maliciousness. No. It's being done to bless you, to give a lifeline to be able to pull yourself out of the influence of a spirit that's been gripping you your entire life when you didn't even. And you can't get away from it unless you do step 1, name spirit and entity that has you. That is, name the condition, provide a label, grant it a name so that you can begin to distinguish what is within the name versus what's outside of the name. That's the opposite of the name. Put a different way, if only good things ever happened to you, if the universe was actually perfect so that everything was good, literally everything that ever happened was only perfectly good, you wouldn't even understand what good means or what bad is. There would be no understanding of the distinction between good and bad. It would just be that everything is. And someone would say from another dimension, this is good, this is bad. You say, what is bad? What is good? That's what Adam and Eve were doing in the Garden of Eden, where they said, what's good, what's bad? What's naked, what's not naked? What's shame, what's not shame? They didn't understand shame because they were never in a possible state of being where they could perceive shame. So therefore, it just was. It all was. Until the Satan program became injected into the program. Then you introduce polarity. And then the interplay rules all of the universe that you live in now until you get back out of it eventually, which is all of us. Alright, starting again. just cut off now. I keep running out of space and I have to keep managing this all. It's not good. So, let's bring the point back around home, finally. The deal is this. If I'm operating in a way that's fundamentally psychopathic in nature, I can never get free from that until it's labeled, where I eventually can hedge to distinguish the formlessness into the form of that label, so that I can finally start stepping out of it, seeing what is the opposite of that. A really good example I would use, that's not just for one type of personality disorder or mental illness or spirit affliction. There's many different kinds, but in one of my recent videos, one of the compilations sets, I don't remember if it's compilation number 7 or compilation number 8, but we included a particular guy who, unlike most of the other experts that have been included in the compilation videos, which range from religious leaders and experts to therapists and clinical psychologists and psychiatrists and experts of that nature, one of the people that we brought in was a guy who has a YouTube channel who is himself a diagnosed narcissist. And when the diagnosed narcissist was speaking himself, describing, you know, like, what is it? Why do we do the things that we do? Why do we do? You remember that guy? If you look back from earlier in the respective playlists that these videos are all being put into, that one guy's insight, if you carefully listen to what he was saying and where he was coming from as he was illustrating all of it, his was different than everybody else's, and in a kind of way, his was better. His was even more real and comprehensive and true in the thing that he was trying to express than anyone else. Why? Because everybody else was trying to describe it from a logical place. They read about it in a book, and they experience, and one step better than that is experiencing it on the receiving end of someone who's giving it. Do you know what's even better than that? Getting someone who's the giver of that, who's in the spirit of the thing or in the dysfunction, have it labeled, he becomes self-aware of it, and then in the self-awareness he's able to step out, and then he says, I've been diagnosed 5 years ago. In 5 years I've been living a life, so now I've been making a YouTube videos channel series to explain what it's like to help people get out from being don't be victimized by it, but like, oh my God, you actually got to self-realize. Do you know how rare that is? Couldn't have been possible without the label. Once the label's given from a friend, from a family member, from someone who names the spirit, because there you are, fuck you, let me break into your house, let me call the police on you, let me take your passport, let me yell at you, when you are in your room doing exercises and you come to mommy to say that you know, hurt yourself, I'm gonna, instead of lovingly embracing, I'll say, let me insult you, spewing venom here, spewing venom there, you're under a spirit of psycho fucking nonsense, not normal, evil. Name the spirit. Name the essence that's underlying the constellation of offenses that you keep generating. That's the first step to freedom. Because here's the thing that you people don't seem to understand. Well, one person here doesn't seem to understand. None of those things are possible to do by someone who doesn't have a cluster B personality disorder. It literally couldn't be fucking physically possible. What do you mean? What we mean is that if we took a person with a normal full spectrum programming, like, oh my God, boy, did I have a wonderful day today. I was in the park and I had these two wonderful Italian women speak to me, particularly one of them. And she was much older. She was actually like she had a son who was like 20-ish, 20-something. And she was, you know, she could have been maybe 45 or 48 or even 50, I don't know. There I was. I'm in my mid 30s. She's in her late 40s. Or we're talking, and oh, she's such a warm energy. Such a warm energy. Italian, Mediterranean energy. Full, real magnetism. Like you could never feel in this sad country, sadly. Really, I'm so sad to even have to say it. It's true. None of the women around here do this. Give this feeling of magnetism. Italian women, every subtle micro thing, the whole neural programming underneath it is what's different. The way she postures herself when she speaks to you. When she speaks to you, she makes you feel like you're a man. The way she orients her whole body towards you. The way she postures towards you. The way she speaks to you. The reverence she gives you. The caring kindness that goes into every word and sentence and topic of discussion that she brings out for you, lays it out with loving kindness in front of you, like let me show you, let us talk together, wow, I never see that from Americans. They're all dumb. Ugh, nothing. There's no sense of interrelatedness whatsoever, hardly. Compared to Europeans, Italians, it's like a new level, a new fucking world. Oh my God, that was the medicine my heart needed today. I've been through some stupid shit. From my own family, you have only pain, and from complete strangers, you have infinite love. What kind of backwards planet is this? It's so sad. You know? You had a wonderful conversation. Good to see normal human beings. Well, you know what? From someone like her, you don't seem to understand. At least as she seemed to be, but I read her well, and boy, what a special human being that was. We should all be like that. It just takes the right impetus. And even if you have to catalyze transformation by breaking down the old forms, sorry. It hurts to break down the old forms. You have to do it anyway. Don't call it bad just because it hurts to break apart the false skin. I know your nerves are implanted into it. I know you're screaming from the pain. That's still fine. Love the pain. Then you'll have new skin soon. Trust the process. We're trying to help you. We're the angels being brought down from heaven to try to teach you people something. Stop resisting. It will hurt. It hurts for a reason. We're pulling the bad shit away. Stop resisting. So, a woman in her position is not going to ever, she couldn't fake an inconsideration that my mom naturally gives without thinking. But the one my mom gave without thinking, when you ask her, why did you do that, for example, if one was to sit down and ask her or whatever, she wouldn't be able to point at anything except to go, I don't even understand what went wrong, or why is that wrong? I don't understand. Yeah, I know you don't understand. That's color blindness. Imagine, so neural deficits affecting the vision manifest as color blindness. Neural deficits affecting your personality manifest as the spirit of offense and underlying spirits and personality disorders. If you lack proper receptors in that part of your brain, you're a fucking person who offends people. But if we're talking about the eyes, oh well, that we understand medically, scientifically. Oh well, I just can't see yellow or green. I can only see purple and blue and orange. Whoa, weird world, right? So how can you tell if someone's colorblind, class? Well, they'll be at stoplights a lot while they're driving, and half the time they can't tell if it's the red light or the green light that's on, so they'll keep rolling into live traffic in the intersection and getting into car accidents. Oh, well, they did it once, and then you say, don't do that again, that was wrong. They'll say, yes, I guess it was wrong. I rolled into an intersection. Yes, it's red, not green. Green, not red. Okay, green, not red. Okay. Then you put them in a car again, and they'll do the same thing again in 5 minutes. The same problem with cluster B type personalities. It's a neural problem. You can't see the fucking, you don't have the capacity practically for it. And perhaps in some limited way you can meta induce other signs to build an awareness around it that's cultivated, which can only start once you're given the label. But imagine we live in a society where the whole life that person was never even told they were colorblind. If they don't even understand that they're missing colors, how can they make changes to fix the fact that they're missing colors when it comes to how they're acting in the world around them and the mistakes that they're making? They can't. It's hopeless. The first step has to be, hey, we are inferring from your patterning that you're unable to distinguish the red light from the green light. What's red and what's green? Yeah, look, red and green. They're like, I don't understand. Oh, fuck. That's crazy. The rest of us will say as we look at each other, who we can see the difference from red and green. And then we'll point to something else. What about that? What's color? What's that? Do you see the difference between these two? They'll say, yes. Okay, good. What about the difference between these two? Sure, they're a little different, all right. And what about these two? You see the clear difference between these two, right? They'll go, no. And everyone else drops dead like, oh my God. Really? You can't see the difference? No, that's not different. No, that is different. No, what are you're crazy. That's not different at all. No, trust me, it's different. You're blind. You literally are colorblind. But then finally, when they deny the label of colorblindness completely, what do you mean I live on my whole universe is blind to some magic color that the rest of you all see? Yeah, that's what you are, psychopath. You're a colorblind emotionally. And narcissist, and cluster B types, and every other condition of that type is something that you can't infer about yourself, even anxiety people. You can't infer your anxiety until you've had a good night out drinking. Then you're like, wait, oh, what the fuck? Now, you ever seen those videos where people put on magic glasses that let them see the colors that they've been missing for the first time ever? Do you see their reactions? All of them fucking break down crying, going, oh my God, oh, what? I can see pink, what the fuck? Oh. They're all crying. Why? Because it's transformative to the human experience. You're supposed to cry. When you're being told you're fucking narcissistic, we're trying to bring you to shame, because the shame that helps you cry is what helps you grow in your brain so that you can see for the first time ever, so that you're living a more beautiful life without hurting people. Guess what? When the colorblind people put on the glasses, which help them see the real colors, and then take off the glasses, those spots where they know they can't, now they know they're colorblind. But what else also is true? They will be able to start inferring the relationships between the certain set of pale grays and then the other less pale grays. And as they interlocate between glasses on, glasses off, glasses on, glasses off, they'll make new intra-connections that will then last when they take off the glasses, but they'll realize new subtle hints that they never even realized were there, and then their own fortification now allows them to operate in the world in a new way, where they'll be like, oh, like, I could see how this type of gray would be red when that that's the difference. And then they have a new improved way of being in this world. And magically, they don't need the glasses anymore. They won't get into accidents either at the intersection, because they get the thing through the intra-inference. Only possible with the label and with the transformative experience. That's why God says rebuke is so important. Rebuke But don't only rebuke and then just for the sake of labeling offenses dryly in a symptom worshipping way and then fail to address the underlying cause. No, we need to name the spirit. That's part 2 of 2. It's always necessary. Label the spirit. If they're a psychopath, say it's a psychopath. Don't criticize them. Lovingly say, we love you, and you're a psychopath. We love you, psychopath. Let us help you understand why you're colorblind, what a non-colorblind life looks like, and then live it that way. Let me be also very honest and frank on this recording. I woke up and realized following my coma and awakening that I was also somewhat emotionally colorblind too in my whole entire life preceding awakening from the coma. It wasn't as bad. I wouldn't go so far as to actually say in hindsight, and I could accurately see myself, I wouldn't say I was a psychopath because I had empathy even then. I wouldn't say I was a narcissist because I had an ability to understand others enough that I wasn't outright. But I was a quasi, very partially along those spectrums. Each of those, they're all cluster B and they're all interrelated. Probably I inherited that dysfunction from my mother. It's all like neurogenetic, all that. I could also see in hindsight now, my maternal grandmother and my mother had it. My father's side definitely had way better. They were not colorblind in that way. They had a lot of loving, emotional, high emotional intelligence, all that, you know. And then maybe my father had a little funny way in one way or another way, but we can't tell if that's the effect of drug damage or innate issues. That I can't distinguish even with my insight because I never knew him when he was 15. So it's one of those things you can't know unless you were there to know what the hell happened to somebody. But no, what happened to me was a thing of fate. It really helped me wake up and restore all my neural settings to the neural settings of God-man, the way he was supposed to be when he was Adam. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? When you see to the default settings of man, even when I was first taking that stuff, I would call my buddy Zach on the phone, tell him, dude, I feel like I could taste everything. I feel like how man felt like 10,000 years ago before civilization started. I feel it all. I'm restored to my default settings. All of you are not. He's like, whoa, man, chill out. I'm like, no, nah, well, this is true. Several years later, I'm like, that was a correct description. And yes, that's correct. That's it. So, how do we identify whether someone is a narcissist or a cluster B type personality? We don't even have to call it narcissism. Let's go one meta level out in generality to the greater cluster. Why? People are offended by a name, whatever. Call it a different thing, but still it should be distinguished. For sure, there's a cluster B type personality, whether you want to call it one thing or another thing. The borders between the two, there's not black and white, those are shades of gray. But the overall cluster is a substantive cluster that is distinct. And you're either really, truly, you are either within the spirit of that cluster or you're not. My mother, Barbara Winslow, I could tell you with the clearest eyes in the world, as a man god of sorts looking down at you all. Yes, you, cluster B type personality, for sure. That's it. Now, if you deny it, yeah, that was like before me, pre-coma, pre-research chemicals, in my alcoholic party state of living, when the first person who had insight said, dude, you're an alcoholic, I also was in denial. What? Me? No way. Whoa. Yeah. You're not so smart. Just because you never heard it before and just because you don't believe it, just because you don't believe it, it doesn't mean it's not true. You people are going to find that lesson out in your lives too. I was lucky enough from a young age to grow in my understanding. My life lessons were a series of learning how the things I used to believe last week, last month, are no longer true. Do that enough times, you develop a new meta knowledge of, oh shit, it's all a whoa, the whole game is a fucking sham. And then you won't take anything you fucking believe seriously. And that's the first step of learning. That's why Socrates said, the smartest man knows that he knows nothing. When he was asked, you know, the only thing I know is that I know nothing. Yes, exactly fucking right. Now you get it. But my mom, oh, I know everything. I know everything. I know. No, that's how we know that you know nothing. And we keep seeing wherever you're wrong, how wrong you are, and then you don't believe you're wrong. Oh, you'll be colorblind forever. Trust us. But first of all, just shut up. If you're a woman, just shut up, listen to men. That's your easiest God link. That's not a fucking coincidence. Figure it out, read your Bible, learn the law, learn the codes, and then follow it. If you're not following it, what the fuck are you doing in this life? Living you? You aren't so good. You are causing damage to other people. And when you cause damage to other people, you open up the karmic jurisdiction for them to rebuke you, offend you, and ultimately through God / the universe mediated cursing, the lack of blessings, you're cut off. Bad things start happening to you, thyroid problems, cancer issues, right when you start having problems with your son. Wow, wonder why. So when I called upon you that there's going to be a death curse to you, and then you start getting signs consistent with potential cancer, why do you think that the timing is perfectly coincidental? Because you keep breaking God's law, so maybe now you're going to finally get the wake-up call, which means stop arguing with the agent of God and finally start to bow and listen. All womankind must bow to mankind, who is the mediator between God and the women who are given the hand to reach at the lower level to be brought up, to be remain within connection, as we're all hand linking and armed to carry each other's weight, is an order. The electric has to act to support the magnetic. Don't be a poor attempt at electric when you're supposed to be a magnet. We're all interpolating, but you need to know your role and shut your mouths, as The Rock used to say in professional wrestling. Get it?